Welcome everyone, my name is Jolene and today we are going to be taking an in-depth look into one of the most closed and tightly controlled information ecosystems in the world. That is the media landscape of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, more colloquially known as North Korea or the DPRK. When analyzing global mass communication systems, North Korea presents itself as an enigmatic case study where the media does not function as an independent entity or a marketplace of ideas, but rather an extension of the totalitarian regime utilized to distribute regime propaganda and promote ideological submission. To better understand North Korea's absolute authority over the flow of information via media, we cannot simply evaluate its communications industry in isolation, but instead one must analyze the nation's composition in its entirety. Allow us to begin by breaking down the historical, political, and economic context in greater detail. To thoroughly conceptualize the strict nature of North Korea's media environment today, we need to first examine the historical, political, and economic conditions that forged the nation that we know today. Following the end of World War II and the strategic division of the Korean Peninsula via democratic and communist forces, the North fell under Soviet rule. The USSR installed Kim Il sung as the de facto ruler of the newfound state and promoted a Marxist state model that prioritized centralized control and aggressive political suppression. When the DPRK was formally founded in 1948, these communist ideologies served as the underpinnings for the regime's approach to media regulation and censorship. The nation viewed journalism not as a source for objective truth, but rather a tool to be manipulated for political mobilization and indoctrination. Subsequently, the state control has been passed through the Kim lineage from Kim Il sung upon the nation's conception to Kim Jong il after his predecessor's passing, and currently to Kim Jong un, the incumbent supreme ruler. Politically, the DPRK functions as a highly centralized totalitarian state. The government exercises ultimate control over every aspect of society, ensuring that no civil organizations, dissenting groups, or factions exist and gain social mobility. This political ecosystem requires extreme surveillance and institutional dependence on the state. In this model framework, the state owns every single press outlet, printing facility, television station, and radio frequency. No channels exist autonomously of the government, and every single channel must be vetted by the regime prior to being dispersed to the public. Economically, the DPRK functions as a strictly planned command economy, where the state owns all means of production. Essentially, this means that North Korea does not have a free market, independent producers do not exist, and there is no competition. A key aspect of this system is to achieve national self-reliance, known culturally as juche. Nevertheless, this economic planning has led to severe disparities between regions. Pyongyang, the nation's capital, is highly modernized and equipped with advanced infrastructure reserved for political elites, whereas neighboring regions face systemic poverty and famine. According to the United Nations, nearly 46% of civilians suffer from chronic malnutrition due to economic mismanagement, perpetual agricultural failures, and the lack of assistance from the capital. This paradoxical state of being has earned North Korea the title of world's poorest advanced economy. This stark economic gap between Pyongyang and rural areas directly translates to a severe disparity in media access and technological infrastructure across different social classes. Although the capital remains extremely developed and militarized and possesses a large amount of technology, the rural areas with the working class possess little to no disposable income and lack of access to quality of. Building off of my previous information, culture, social norms, and religion in North Korea are deeply intertwined with state control, essentially acting as a secondary mechanism that dictates how citizens consume and interact with information. Central to North Korean life is this concept of juje, this idea of extreme self reliance, national isolationism, and an unwavering loyalty to the supreme leader. Juche functions as a pseudo-secular religion, systematically replacing traditional spiritual beliefs and demanding a total devotion to the Kim dynasty. Social dynamics in North Korea are further governed by Songbun, a rigid social caste system implemented by the North Korean regime. This system, which was manufactured by the DPRK, classifies citizens into three groups: loyal, wavering, or hostile, depending on their family's socioeconomic class, political background, and allegiance before the formation of the DPRK. To a degree, an individual's social place within society is predetermined and has been decided way before their conception. Suspicion of an individual and their alleged loyalty to the regime is brewed due to a collective familial history rather than individual actions and allegiance. As Songbun ranking dictates many spheres of North Korean civil society, including an individual's education opportunities, access to housing, and career opportunities, those in the loyal class residing in Pyongyang enjoy access to a plethora of normally restricted media, such as state television, controlled intranet networks, and mobile phones, whereas those in the hostile class face extreme and informational isolation. North Korea is not only isolated socially, but also geographically, bordering only South Korea to its south and China to its northwest. As political ties between North and South Korea have almost been entirely severed, North Korea maintains relations with very few nations, but has the strongest ties with Russia and China. Travel and the exchange of media is permitted between these nations. However, this system is strategically designed to keep tourists and residents in a totalitarian echo chamber. Since all three of these nations share this totalitarian communist ideology, all citizens only receive information that aligns with established party ideals. These three nations leverage this system to legitimize their regimes and create a common ground for residents between countries. Although communication is still restricted between these three countries, North Korea uses this concept to align itself with like-minded regions and demonstrate to its civilians that since fellow countries abide by this totalitarian regime, it is permissible for the DPRK to perpetuate heavy state control as well. Additionally, social gatherings and free socialization are heavily monitored by the state to ensure party compliance and social obedience. Public life in North Korea is structured around organized communal activities designed to reinforce ideological compliance and prevent the organic formation of unauthorized social networks. The government essentially fears that if individuals galvanize and unionize together, they could rebel or create fractions that dissent the reigning party's ideology. Prior to the establishment of the DPRK, the nation also had a rich and diverse history of religion, with Pyongyang coincidentally being known as the Jerusalem of the East due to its vast and robust Christian population. However, after the establishment of the DPRK, the regime began systematically eradicating and oppressing independent religious practices and instead installed Juche as the central system of belief. So essentially, Juche functions by taking a divine being such as God and replacing it with the Kim family. A lot of residents and civilians within North Korea do actually believe that the Kim lineage possesses a degree of divinity and that their lineage was divinely appointed to lead North Korea into this elevated state of being. They believe that North Koreans are culturally, morally, and just all around superior to any other nation. And that is rhetoric that is continuously perpetuated throughout party propaganda, throughout political campaigns, and just really amplified in colloquial everyday life. Moving forward, we have a brief overview of North Korea's media structure, and it is crucial to note that the structure of North Korea's media system is designed with a single overarching purpose, and that is to maintain total ideological homogeny and prevent external information from threatening the regime's rule. So, the entire media foundation in North Korea is built on the premise of serving the regime rather than providing objective and honest journalism. So, this infrastructure relies on absolute state ownership across all communication mediums, an isolated internal network, and strict mobile device monitoring. And this varies via your class, your songbyeon, depending on your social class. The level of access that you have to even the media systems within North Korea is very dependent. So, rural Koreans, North Koreans living in neighboring provinces to Pyongyang do not receive the same access to media and technological resources that the political elites in Pyongyang do. Every newspaper, radio, broadcast, and essentially television channel is created, curated, and monitored by the Agitation and Propaganda Department of the Workers' Party of Korea. So essentially, everything exists intertwined with one another, and there exists no autonomous, independent, reliable news source. And it is crucial to note that a cornerstone of North Korea's media system is its closed digital infrastructure. I think it's pretty ubiquitously known that North Koreans cannot access the global internet, and it is highly restrictive and carries severe punishment if one is found to be doing so. Instead, the regime provides its citizens with a heavily restricted national intranet known as Kwangmyong, which loosely translates to bright light. This closed intranet contains only pre-approved forums, media portals, and propaganda models, ensuring that all information that citizens can regularly access via cellular devices is vetted and pre-approved by the party and the regime. Additionally, cellular phones have been modified by the state to include surveillance technology while the user is actively utilizing their device. So, operating systems on North Korean smartphones continuously capture random screenshots while a user is actively on their cellular device, and it logs their browsing activity and utilizes a digital signature technology that automatically blocks or deletes unapproved foreign media files. These phones are manufactured in China, and citizens can acquire these devices through state-run shops or through their local workplace. And essentially, how citizens initially retrieve or possess these devices, you can't just walk into a shop and buy one. You have to fill out an application form indicating your rank within North Korean governments, and they'll ask you various questions regarding your songbyeom, your occupation, and essentially your reason for needing a phone. It's not something that you can very casually purchase. It's a very premeditated consumption that you need to iron out. And so after the state reviews your application and either approves or denies it, you can go to any of the shops and you can request under your name the phone that the government had approved for you. Additionally, to install any software onto the device that does not come pre-installed, the residents of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea must bring their phone to nearby government shops to have the shopkeepers manually revise and install the software that they're requesting. Moreover, the system of Songbyom greatly reflects in the structural media access across the DPRK. This is something I briefly touched on at the beginning of the slide, but political elites in Pyongyang receive greater access to media and entertainment than the rural neighboring provinces. Elites are rewarded with multi channel state television sets, specialized libraries, and very monitored and immensely restricted access to foreign academic materials. So, although although foreign media and materials are extremely prohibited in any capacity for the average citizen, if you are a North Korean elite, you are sometimes granted extremely, still very restricted access to foreign media, which I found fascinating. Conversely, rural populations face electricity shortages, lack of access to basic media infrastructure, and radios that are hardwired into their homes from the government. This absolute this absolute state control over physical broadcast and digital infrastructure essentially ensures that the media system operates as a closed loop of state ideology that is perpetually reiterating itself. Building directly off of North Korea's media systems infrastructure, we have their main media sectors. And in order to truly understand and conceptualize how the media is leveraged by the regime to distribute party ideology, you have to break down their primary media to distribute party ideology, you have to break down their primary media sectors and understand how each one is exploited to solely promote political ideology instead of promote honest and objective reporting. So, the four main media sectors in North Korea are television, newspaper, radio, and digital media. And the controlling party, the reigning party, utilizes these various forms in order to maintain its ironclad grasp on its civilians. Primarily, we have television, and television serves as the premier visual medium for state political communication. The regime operates four state run television networks with Korean Central Television, KCTV, as its main platform. KCTV is notorious for running emotionally charged political commentary, historical documentaries about the DPRK's founding. They live cast military parades, and they broadcast official announcements celebrating the supreme leader. Broadcasting schedules, as everything else in North Korea, are extremely monitored to align with party campaigns and propagandist agendas. No other forms of visual entertainment exist. All movies, commentary shows, and television broadcasts must be vetted by and center around regime ideology. But upon construction, televisions are modified to receive only state run channels, and officials routinely inspect sets to ensure that they have not been tampered with and ensure compliance with regime administered standards. TV signals are also scrambled to prevent citizens from accessing outside streams that go against party ideology and North Korean culture. Next, we have print media or newspapers. In North Korea, the primary official organ of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea is called Rodong Sinmun, also colloquially known as the newspaper of the workers, and it is a direct extension of the Workers' Party of Korea. The Workers' Party of Korea is the only political faction allowed to exist within the country, and it is central to the ruling regime and its ideology. Rodong Sinmun is the most authoritative print publishing in the publication in the country. They establish official state policies, they edit editorial lines, and they essentially provide all ideological positions that regional and institutional publications are required to replicate. Journalists are not instructed to report or function as independent outlets, but rather they serve as tools to further the regime's soft power and legitimacy. Due to such a stark economic disparity between urban and rural communities, radio broadcasting remains the most ubiquitous media sector across the country. The state operates the Korean Central Broadcasting Station, also known as KCBS, alongside external shortwave networks that are meant to target foreign audiences. In domestic households, the government has mandated fixed frequency wired speakers, and these speakers are connected directly to local broadcasting centers. These speakers, which cannot be turned off or manipulated, broadcast state news, patriotic songs, and emergency announcements daily. These speakers are active from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., exposing citizens to constant propaganda and party rhetoric. This is done to convince residents of the party's greatness and of their need for submission to the regime. Lastly, but not least, we have digital media. And digital media represents a growing yet heavily restricted sector. While digital devices like tablets and smartphones are increasingly used by citizens, they function primarily as fronts for party appearances rather than true channels of information and connectivity. Digital content is limited to state-approved applications, ebooks, and patriotic video games, ensuring that even technological modernization serves to reinforce state control rather than dismantle it. Access to technology is merely a facade generated by the state to portray the image of a connected, free population, when in actuality, residents are still heavily censored, monitored, and repressed. Now that we've briefly assessed how North Korea leverages its media system for political dominance and regime ideology, it is crucial to evaluate how global mass communication theories apply to North Korea and which ones align with their current exploitation of the media industry. Throughout our time in this course, we've discussed various systems of global media and theories regarding how civilians interact with these systems. But when analyzing North Korea's media architecture, two primary models provide an exceptional analytical framework, and these are the authoritarian press theory and the propaganda model. The authoritarian press theory posits that the primary role of media within an authoritarian regime is to spread ideology, rhetoric, and propaganda that favors the party in power. Under this model, the press is highly censored, subordinate to government authorities, and does not exist autonomously or objectively. The primary focus of this model is to squander dissent, maintain political dominance, and protect the incumbent regime. North Korea serves as an extreme case study for the authoritarian press theory, illustrating how media only really exists within these regimes to uphold repressive values and silence disapproval. Simultaneously, the concept of concentrated media or state-owned media is directly applicable to the DPRK, as all medium systems function as an extension of the regime rather than operating autonomously from it. All forms of media are owned by the government and are heavily censored, and this is done to protect the party's image and prevent social uprisings. Any organization, channel, or individual reporter who does not comply with strict government standards faces severe punishment or even death. Lastly, we have Herman and Chomsky's 1988 propaganda model, which offers a structural framework for understanding how media content is censored and diluted to serve elite interests. While Herman and Chomsky originally applied their model to corporate driven news and capitalistic democracies, the structural filters they identified, such as ownership concentration, resource reliance, and ideological enforcement, function with absolute state enforced rigor in North Korea. In the DPRK, the state functions as the ultimate owner. It is the sole source of information and the only enforcer of this ideology. The North Korean regime utilizes its strategic position in order to perpetuate the same standards that the regime has been abiding by for the last few decades. Now that we've evaluated how modern mass communication theories apply to North Korea's telecommunications industry, we can now discuss how North Korea functions in a broader global scale and how global news outlets relay information from North Korea. To demonstrate how state control over media functions on an operational level, we can examine a real world case of media suppression in North Korea. A more notable case earlier this year involved a resident of Pyongyang who was arrested and sentenced to 12 years of hard labor in a political prison camp for possessing and distributing South Korean media. This illicit media in question was a South Korean drama and K-pop. This case highlights the extreme to which the government imposes on civilians to prevent cultural contamination and ensure cultural homogeny throughout the country. The arrest was conducted under North Korea's law on the elimination of reactionary thought and culture, enacted in late 2020. This law ushered in an unprecedented series of criminal penalties for possessing, distributing, or viewing foreign media. The penalties for possessing foreign media are intensified if said media originates from the United States, South Korea, or Japan. The regime views these regions specifically as posing the utmost threat to party values and North Korean stability. Under the law, citizens caught consuming foreign media or news broadcasts face extended periods and forced labor camps, while those caught distributing such materials can face public execution. This underscores the regime's continual desire to censor access to foreign sources that may undermine party ideology and incite rebellion amongst the masses. To ensure complete obedience to North Korean law, the government invokes cruel and unusual punishment that is disproportionate to the act itself. Possessing and distributing illicit media is considered one of the greatest acts of treason one can commit within the DPRK. A secondary case study we can use to analyze North Korea's media is their crackdown on wire broadcast inspections. As aforementioned, North Korea mandates that all civilians maintain a broadcast radio within their home. These radios, modified to receive only state-run broadcasts, are required to play, uninterrupted, from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. Any sign of tampering with domestic radios carries a severe penalty of forced labor and possible execution. In early 2026, as reports of local tampering grew, the North Korean government began conducting unannounced radio checks, ensuring that all citizens were in compliance with regime law. This coordinated push to reinforce state ideology manipulates media sources to comply with party agendas and campaigns. Neighborhood watch unit leaders were delegated the task and instructed to report any individual who was perceived to be tampering with their state-issued home broadcasting system. The timing of this scheme is directly linked to the conclusion of the Ninth Party Congress. The Ninth Party of Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea was the highest level decision-making forum of North Korea's ruling political party. The committee, to no surprise, re-elected Kim Jong-un as the WPK General Secretary and cemented a strict 5-year political agenda. This illustrates how media is leveraged and exploited by authoritarian regimes to expand party patronage, subvert independent thinking, and solidify centralized ideals. Despite its compulsory nature, Fewer than 1 in 5 households actively listen to the broadcasting messaging. And additionally, the financial burden of maintaining and replacing these broadcasting systems has fueled resentment amongst the rural class. As aforementioned, there is a stark economic disparity between elites in Pyongyang and the rural farmers located in neighboring provinces. And although these broadcasting systems are mandated by law, it is up to the individual family to cover the cost of fixing or replacing their systems if they break. Replacing speakers costs the equivalent of over 2 kilograms of corn, and with rural areas already in such a dire predicament, resentment is festering. However, according to the Daily North Korea, households that fail inspections do face public shaming, and the entire neighborhood watch unit risk collective punishment, which is the primary reason people comply despite building frustrations and resentment. This demonstrates how media and power overlap in Korea, as broadcasting radios are a tool that the government utilizes to force obedience and silence oppositions. Citizens comply to evade retaliation efforts, and the regime in power profits off of these speakers. Whether it be politically or economically, these broadcasting systems continue to perpetuate the disparities between the rural and modern class. If we look prospectively, a blanket assumption can be made. In the coming years, North Korea will maintain its ironclad rule over its media industry and continue to use media as a tool for spreading party ideals and silencing dissent. However, I believe that will only fuel the illicit inflow of external information. Despite severe crackdowns and legal penalties, foreign media smuggling will continue. In response, I hypothesize that North Korean officials will likely refine their digital surveillance technology, creating a more efficient landscape for confiscating prohibited media. According to Creston and Williams, operating systems on all domestic digital devices will feature updated software designed to detect and disable foreign video formats, automatically flag illicit keywords, and trace the movement of files across devices via invisible digital watermarks. In a broader analysis, I posit that absolute control will remain over all media sectors. Television will continue to operate as a state-run entity, and Korean Central Television, KCTV, will remain the primary channel for broadcasting political messages and party ideology. For tangible media like newspapers, outlets like Rodong Sinmun will remain heavily censored tools of the Workers' Party of Korea, serving as primary directives for government policy. Papers will remain highly censored and refrain from promoting content that does not pertain to the regime. Broadcasting systems will remain compulsory within North Korean residences and continue to relay party-approved messaging. Lastly, access to the global intranet will remain restricted to the general public, and North Korea will enhance its Kwangmyong internet to possess better surveillance technology and insurmountable firewalls. I would like to express immense gratitude for tuning in and listening to my presentation. I hope you found it as fascinating and informative as I did, and I genuinely adored the research aspect of this project. So attached here are my references, and thank you so much